Welcome to Catch You Outdoors, presented by the Waypoint Podcast Network on waypointtv.com. I'm your host, Captain Rob Moses. This week's episode is number 61, Working on My Tan. There was actually no good reason for that title. I mean, really and truly. This week is not a tan week. I think that's why I did it. In the Florida Keys, it's like, it's beautiful. Just beautiful and beautiful, and then it's beautiful. And if it rains, it'll be like a half a day and the sun comes out. No, not this time. Yeah, we had a cold front go through, the one that socked the up north with all the snow. And so after the cold front actually made it through here, which is also rare, and wound up down in the Gulf Stream, it stopped. And then it decided to turn around and come back. And the comeback part was not good. The comeback part is full of moisture and just an absolute ton of fun right now. Highly overcast, no fishing, winds blowing like crazy, that kind of stuff. So I've added both my earlier books once again for purchase with discounts for the holidays. The discounts also include shipping this time around, and the copies are signed in our first edition printings. I've also added a coming soon to my website for the new book, the Take a Kid Fishing, an Adult's Guide to Introducing Youngsters to the World of Angling. Both of these are available at catchyououtdoors.com. I just celebrated a birthday, 69 years old. How in the world did that happen? Of course, it's probably good that it did, I guess, right? I mean, I admit it's been a struggle over the last 7 plus years, thanks to cancer, but I'm still here. I'm enjoying my new life in the Florida Keys. I am enjoying my new life in the Florida Keys immensely, if you haven't noticed. I refuse to sit on a couch watching TV, eating bad food, getting fat. Nope, that's not me. Well, I could be. People know I have a propensity for sweets. Yeah, I love candy. Gummy bears being one of my favorite things ever. But anyway, and I don't really exercise per se. I don't go to the workout room. I don't. No offense to those of you that do, and no offense to the owners of workout places. It's just not me. I get my workouts by walking, riding the bike, pedaling my kayak, hiking, the walking part. I mean, I get outside. I mean, I named this podcast Catch You Outdoors. There's a reason for that. That's where I live most of the time. That's the way Florida Keys are. Actually, all of Florida is that way. Most of it. Well, I don't know about being way up north right now. Jacksonville and the reaches up close to Georgia, I understand, are quite chilly today. But anyway, down here it's nice. Except for, now I've already told you, it's not nice. Today is not nice. Today is raining like crazy. It's... Of course, it's a tropical paradise, right? And the only way it's going to remain a tropical paradise is if it has rain. And rain is what makes all this stuff turn beautiful green and grow and turns all of our open areas into jungle. So anyway, this past week we made a birthday trip to Key West. That's really what it was all about. We were going to do this anyway, but I had some plans for doing a little kayaking and maybe a little bit of fishing as this weekend went around, but that was just completely out. So we wound up in Key West, what I love to call the end of the world. At least I've always felt that way about it. There's no modern, fancy, high-rise hotels and skyscrapers and things like that. So, and if that would ever happen, I guess I'd have to go further south, which would be South America. Some of my friends are there. Well, in Key West, my wife and I had a really great time. I'll do a rundown. I'm going to give you some locations. I promised that I was going to do this in the past, and I never have. So I'm going to talk a little bit about my trip and just recommend a couple things you should really do if you're headed for Key West this winter. And by the way, Key West fared very well over the past couple of storms. Irma did a lot of damage, and then, of course, Ian went by, but still was the hot side of the storm down in Key West. But for all intents and purposes, cleanup is still in place in Key West. There's still some trash and things along the street along the southern side of Key West, but all in all, everything is pretty much back to normal. So if you're planning a trip down this winter and you're having trouble with other places, and I understand that because I used to live there and I feel bad. I really feel bad for Sanibel Captiva, Pine Island, and Estero, Fort Myers Beach. It's a mess. And if you can get in there, do it, please. And if you can support the people there, by all means. But if you're looking for a place just to go hide this winter and your plans have been scratched for the West Coast, come on down to the Keys. It's nice here, and we're doing pretty good. So, although you might want to book early because the rumor has it we're going to be full because of what happened on the West Coast, and I'm not the least bit surprised about that. So anyway, I guess day one, we drove down on Friday late. Jonah had to do a little bit of work, and then so after she got done with that around 4 or 5 o'clock, we headed down. And it was your typical drive down the road, where from Key Largo to Key West is just about 2 hours from our house on US 1. It's about 40, 45 miles an hour all the way, and you got about 100 miles to go. So it's going to take a couple hours to get there. The good news is it's very scenic. I love the drive. I really do. There are times when it bothers me when there are just so many people on the road, and we have a lot of looky-loos. No, it's not a car accident. It's just looky-loos. Once you get down past Tavernier, you start heading into the Alamorada area, the roads open up, and you can see ocean and bay from the road. And there's a lot of beautiful, beautiful turquoise green, blue-green water that just absolutely, I can understand. If you haven't seen it, well, there you go. So we arrived down there. We checked into our room. Another Marriott. I think we're trying every Marriott on the island. At Club Points, you know how that goes. So we went down to Pepe's for dinner. And it's kind of funny. I have a really good friend, Gary, who fished me a lot. I realized that he and his wife had no idea what Pepe's was. As much as they've been around us, in some way or shape or form, they never went there. I'm not sure what happened, but so I'll give you the story. I was incredulous when I got to text. Where's Pepe's? What's Pepe's? I was like, oh no, you don't know Pepe's? Well, those listeners that don't, here you go. It is the oldest restaurant in Key West. It's the second oldest restaurant in the entire state of Florida. Opened in 1909 to the likes of all kinds of wild and crazy pirate-like people. It's right down on the waterfront, southern waterfront, down on the what they call the port. Very close to, just about anything that has to do with the open port on the north side of the island. I guess the seaport is what they call the area. Near Schooner's Wharf. If you've been to Schooner's, a lot of you have been to Schooner's Wharf, have no idea Pepe's is across the street. It's just on the other side of Caroline Street. Fantastic food. That's all I can tell you. Not everyone. No, everyone. Just about everyone goes to the Keys has seafood of some sort, whether it's shrimp, crab, Florida lobster, whatever. This place has got the best steaks. So if you go to Pepe's, don't be afraid to order a nice big New York strip. They're delicious. That's what I had. Vegetables are always great and cooked perfectly. I was trying to think. There are other outrageous dishes. Drinks are great, really good. One of the favorites from my friends who have visited Key West a lot is one we call the Brain Dart. It's the biggest martini you've ever seen in your life. But there are other stuff there that's really good. Dessert's good too. Key lime pie was excellent there. I rate key lime pie from place to place, and most of them just don't do it right. I mean, I know it's Florida and it should be perfect, but it's not. A lot of times the key lime pie is just kind of off. Wrong color. That drives me crazy when they dye it. Yeesh. It should be yellow. It shouldn't be green, but I've seen green ones, which is really scary. But anyway, I like key lime pie, and they have a great pie there. They also make the most wonderful Bloody Marys in the morning. When you show up there for breakfast, you've had a rough night in Key West, which is really easy to do. And you get up in the morning, head down there to Pepe's. They make an outrageously huge Bloody Mary that'll set your day straight for you. Service is great. I think there's two ways to go to view Pepe's. Pepe's has the old building, the original building, and then it has a garden next door, which it's all attached. It's all part of the same thing. So there's a great deal of outdoor seating and a little bit of indoor seating. I like to sit in the old side. I like looking at the old posters that are in there, the old pictures of the sailors and fishermen from way back when, and basically it's like going into a museum and having dinner. So it's pretty cool in that respect. Just talking about it there makes me want to go back. So I guess I'll have to do that real soon. We spent the rest of the evening roaming about Key West, people watching, which is something I love to do. Wound up at Margaritaville at one point. Had some tequila shots with the manager. Only one. Really trying to behave myself here. And then got a cab back, which I also behaved myself by doing, back to the room. And that was Friday night. That was our arrival on Friday. Saturday, we spent the day roaming. And we did something that I have not done in ages. And I visited places that I've never been to in the Key West area. There's a monthly native plant sale, and those of you that listen know that I love native plants. My wife and I strive to do a big butterfly garden and do nothing but native plants in the yard, doing our part to keep the Keys, or Florida for that matter. The Key West Tropical Forest and Botanical Garden over on Stock Island has a monthly native plant sale. And Jonella told me about it last month, October. We weren't able to go. We had guests here, and a lot of things were going on at that time. So this time we decided we'd make sure to get there. And Stock Island is one of those places. I think I've only been on it maybe twice, and I don't really know a whole lot about it. Although Stock Island is considered Key West. If you look at addresses that are actually on Stock Island, they're listed as blah 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 Key West, and you're like, wait a minute, that's not How come the sign says "Welcome to Key West" when you get right to the bridge, and Stock Island's already behind you? But anyway, that's the way it is. Stock Island is very interesting. It is. It's different. It's older. It appears to be older. So anyway, we did the plant thing. We went over there and we found 3 or 4 things we didn't have, to add to our collection of outdoor native plants, things that draw in butterflies and whatnot. And we pot plants. We mostly just plant plants in pots. No, we don't plant pot. We plant plants in pots. There, get that straight right now. We do that, as most people do, that garden in the Keys. And yeah, all of the Keys. We live on top of limestone and coral rock. So you don't dig a hole in the yard and plant something. Most of the houses don't have grass. We just have shell or gravel around the entire house. That also saves you a lot on water, because water down here is expensive to water with. So anyway, things are put in pots, and that's what we're always looking for. We're looking for the most interesting things that we can pot, vine-type plants, things like that are native Florida, and put them all around the yard, do our best to draw butterflies in. Now, I'm not saying you can't dig a hole in the yard. It can be done. You're going to have to go to Home Depot up in Homestead or down to Marathon and get you a jackhammer. And believe it or not, they rent jackhammers so that people can dig a hole in the yard to plant a tree. I'm not joking about this. This is true. So I don't know of anywhere else I've ever lived where I've gone into Home Depot to rent a jackhammer. I rented a lot of stuff, floor cleaners, tile cleaners, things like that, but I've never walked in there and say, hey, you guys got a jackhammer? Yes, they do. And that's the only way you're going to get through the top layer of limestone or coral rock down here. So our goal with our garden is to draw in butterflies and migrating songbirds, things like that. And the harder you work at this, the better off you do. We've been at this for 25 years now, and we've really done pretty well with satisfying, doing what we like to do and drawing in all the different butterflies and stuff like that. And also, people praise us for our garden. I enjoy that. I like it when people walk into the yard and go, man, this is really nice. Thank you. And also it's another way to spend time outdoors. And as I said a minute ago, that's the whole point of the podcast, is catch outdoors. So anyway, we explored Stock Island after we got done shopping for a few plants, and what an interesting place. I am just kicking myself for not going over there sooner. Because like I said before, I rarely spent any time over there. But I found a real serious mix of old and new. I think that's what I really liked about it the best. And it's very, very, very unique compared to Key West itself. It's like I said, old and new. It's a mix of old and new, all in one place. There are old working marinas, old trailer parks located along skinny little roads where two vehicles can barely pass each other. The marinas are where the fresh fish, stone crab, Florida lobsters, things like that are delivered for sorting and then eventual sale to the stores and restaurants. So it's workers. I mean, these guys are tanned to the bone, tattooed from head to toe in great big working white boots, or those basically water boots, water shoes, water jackets, things like that. Crusty dudes, as they should be. Hard workers, hands that look like scouring pads. And they're in there working all this fish and working all this stuff around and giving the glare at you when you come around. They're like, okay, you don't belong here. You're in the wrong place, that kind of thing. But I liked it. Trailer parks aren't designed for snowbirds. I'm not talking about the ones that have been there for years. For those folks, in Key West and all the way down the islands, we have these really nice trailer park areas, RV parking, that kind of stuff. This is not the same thing. These trailer parks are not designed that way. They've been there for years. They've survived a multitude of storms and house the worker bees. These are trailer parks that are put together a piece at a time as a piece falls off or blows away. I mean, it's pretty cool, actually. The new are waterside resorts that are popping up and some surprising new restaurants. For lunch, we stopped at Sloppy Joe's Dockside. Now, Sloppy Joe's sounds familiar. It is. It's part of Sloppy Joe's in the middle of Key West off of Duval Street. Duval and Green Street, I believe, is where Sloppy Joe's is. And it's an institution on the island on Key West. You go there if you want to have a really good drink, a really good meal, and watch excellent live music on the stage. It's a big place. It's not small like a lot of the bars are in Key West. It's really large. And they opened Sloppy Joe's Dockside not long ago. It appears. I didn't look up the date, but everything out there seems brand new. And Sloppy Joe's Dockside also has the good food. There wasn't music at the time. There could be, I suppose. But it has a view of the harbor and the water that can't be beat. So that was really cool. And it's at the very end of one of those little bitty roads I was talking about earlier. And I have to say the burgers we had, and the libations were great. When lunch was over, we went back to exploring Stock Island again, just, heading back out on the old roads and kind of cruising around and seeing what's what. And at the end of one of those roads, we found the Hogfish Bar. Now, long story short, we were looking for the place because we were lucky enough to have time my birthday weekend to also be able accidentally attend their 20th anniversary celebration. So the Hogfish is pretty much what you would expect. It's at the very end of one of those long, narrow streets, surrounded by the old working marinas, trailer parks, just exactly like you would picture. If you went off the road, if you just went off the road in Florida and you followed a trail, you're like, wow, this is crazy. And then at the very end of it, or near the end, I should say, almost the end of it, is the Hogfish Bar. And 20 years and I haven't been there. What a mistake. What a terrible mistake. Go. Take my word for it. If you're coming into Key West, do yourself a favor. Stop in Stock Island and take a little time out. Maybe breeze in there and have a drink or two or have a lunch. Now, they're not open until lunchtime. So just so you know, they don't do mornings. And I think they might be closed on a good chunk of the day on Sunday from what somebody told me. But anyway, I hadn't been there before. I want to tell you this. The food was great. Drinks are great. The servers were fun and entertaining and conversational. It was definitely a step back in time. Our server even joined the table for a round of tequila shots. That'll tell you a lot about what's going on at the Hogfish Bar. But what was really cool, seriously, folks, was we were there just in time for some of the best entertainment ever because they were having their 20th anniversary. And apparently there are a lot of artists, Nashville artists, and Jimmy Buffett artists, and Kenny Chesney artists, and those type of people who hang out there. And I think a lot of that is because right near there is a very, very big, nice marina that has a lot of large yachts in it. And these are the people that don't want to tie up a yacht in Key West and don't want it in the waters off Key West. So they hide out on Stock Island in this big marina there. And it was funny. We even saw a yacht that Janelle and I occasionally would see in Fort Lauderdale near our house, tied up in one of the marinas there, was down there in the stock. We even stopped by and said hello, introduced ourselves, like, oh, we recognize that boat. And so anyway, because of this, the entertainment turned out to be fantastic for the 20th anniversary. So I'll start with this. So the first entertainer was a guy named Andy Westcott. Andy Westcott's a local musician from Key West himself. He's basically one of those guys that does trop rock, and I've talked about this on my podcast before. Trop rock is tropical rock. It's typically it's how Jimmy Buffett got labeled. Let's just put it that way. Nobody knew where to put Jimmy Buffett or what to call him. Is he rock? Is he slow rock? Is he country? Or what the heck is he? No, he sings about the water. He sings about salt water and fishing and islands, and so he got dubbed a tropical rocker. And a lot of these other guys obviously have fallen into place with that over the years. I mean, Buffett's been at it now for 40 years or so, so here they are. Andy Westcott's one of those, and he was really quite good. I liked his songs. I enjoyed listening to him. Then came Scotty Emmerich. Now, Scotty Emmerich might be more noted to some of you that listen. Country music artist, wrote songs for Toby Keith, Sawyer Brown, George Strait, Kenny Chesney, just to say a few. And he was really, really good on stage. He did a one-man show, just got up there and did a really nice set of his songs and some things that he'd written with other artists or for other artists, and that was really good. And then the headliner appeared, and the headliner was Mac McAnally. Now, if you don't know the name or don't recognize the name, you have probably heard something that somebody plays that he wrote, especially if you're a country music fan. Mac McAnally is best known for being a member of Jimmy Buffett's Coral Reefer Band. But for me, what stands out is his winning Musician of the Year award 10 times from the Country Music Association. I don't know anyone else that's even come close. And a lot of that has to do with his association with so many artists that he's written songs for, and of course performs himself and has his own albums. So, but if you listen to country music, old or new, you've probably heard one of his songs. He's penned them for Sawyer Brown, Steve Wariner. Let's see who else. Sammy Kershaw, Shenandoah, Alabama. I'm just trying to rattle off. Jimmy Buffett, of course, and Kenny Chesney. And being in Jimmy Buffett's band, obviously he's writing songs for Jimmy and hanging pretty tight to Kenny Chesney. He put on a heck of a show, and at the end of the evening, I was lucky enough to just stop and say hello and get a fan photo. I am a fan. Got to get a photo, right? While getting the photo, I told him I really, really liked his guitar playing. But you haven't lived till you've seen this guy play guitar. He's really, really good. And it made me jealous. I play guitar, but I am not even in I do well, but I'm not in the league of this guy. There's no way. And so I said, it makes me jealous. And he was kind of funny. He said, don't worry about it. He says, I got lots of practice. I lived in a little bitty Mississippi town where there wasn't anything else to do. So all I did was practice guitar and write songs. And I thought, okay, that's where I went wrong. So needless to say, I'm going back to Hogfish Bar whenever possible. By the way, the food that we had several different dishes come out, but man, they had a hogfish taco that was crazy good. So don't be afraid to try the food. The food is excellent. Again, finding the place is fun. You're going to have to pop it into your map, Google Map or whatever. We did. And find your way down one of those narrow little roads on Stock Island, and lo and behold, you will arrive, and it's definitely worth it. Let's see, Sunday Fun Day, as I like to call it, found us at Blue Heaven, and sound familiar to some of you probably, some of you not. Blue Heaven is a really well-known restaurant among the Key West folks and folks of the islands down here. Located in the Bahama Village section of Key West, which would put you way, way over on the west side, basically on the west side of Duval. What used to be the middle of nowhere, not anymore. It's growing. People are buying old beat-up homes and fixing them up. You know how it is. It's just that's the advancement is happening. But Blue Heaven, I think I'd have to give a lot of credit to Jimmy Buffett for it becoming famous. It was opened in '92, so it's not a real old institution. At least I don't think of it that way, even though '92 now is almost 30 years ago. It is 30 years ago. Good Lord. Okay, that just woke me up. Opened as a little open air bar restaurant underneath big giant trees. So it's like a patio restaurant, surrounded by buildings. So you don't know where it is. You have to kind of hunt for it to get into it. It's in an old building. The basis of it is an old building that used to be a bordello, and the garden area, the outside area, is where Ernest Hemingway refereed boxing matches. Jimmy, of course, put it on the map with a song called Blue Heaven Rendezvous. It was on one of his, I think it was on Coconut Telegraph. I can't really remember. It would have to be something around that early 90s time frame. I think it was Coconut Telegraph. And that song just sounds like you want to go there. He talks about sitting out there and having breakfast. And it's back in the early days, it was dirt floor. It was, well, you're outside. It was dirt. And there were chickens running underneath your feet and cats and all kinds of cool stuff. I won't say it's more civilized, but it's expanded. They've put some paving block down. Trees are enormous. There's an inside bar and an inside area to eat, but where everybody wants to be is outside, and they've expanded that quite a bit. And there's a fantastic outside bar, a great big rectangular kind of bar where you can sit out there. If you're lucky enough to grab a seat, we were. I confess, it's been years since I've been there, and I'm embarrassed to say that because it was just one of those places that I loved to go to back in the early days of my visiting Key West in the early 90s and moving on into the later 90s when I met Janelle and all the friends that we hang out with there. The Blue Heaven was one of our spots, and especially if you wanted a delicious breakfast. Mimosas are on the menu. And these are the mimosas from hell. This is a full-size wine glass that they fill with champagne and put a splash of orange juice on top. So if you don't like champagne, or if you like it mixed well, you're going to have to order an extra glass of orange juice to go alongside of it. Fantastic Bloody Marys to get your day started. But what really, really, really makes this place rock is they got a chef that can cook breakfast like nobody's been. I'm talking a real honest-to-God chef. And this time around, we had the Eggs Benedict. It was Lobster Benedict. Oh, I can't tell you how good that was. Good enough. I'm thinking about going back down there next week. Served on an English muffin. Helping a huge helping of Florida lobster. Just there's no doubt that there's lobster on it. Poached egg on top of that, smothered in key lime hollandaise sauce. Did I just make you hungry? God, I hope so. Because I know when I get back, I'm going to do that. Now, here's the key. Lobster season. You got to go when there's lobster season because that's part of the deal. Of course, they do a lot of other things with meats on their all their food, but especially on the Eggs Benedict. I noticed, I looked it up. I was curious to see what do they do when you can't get Florida lobster, which is a seasonal item. They do filet mignon. They do medallions. They dice them up and put. I'm like, okay, I'm there for that. That will absolutely work in case I can't get lobster. I just wanted to make sure I was able to get it. But that's why this place is called Blue Heaven. I mean, really and truly, it's just all about delicious food and meeting great people. Something I love about Key West is everywhere we went, all the bars we stopped, the restaurants we went to, nobody shuts up. You're not going to be there private. You're not going to find out about who the person is next to you because everybody says hi to each other. And pretty soon it's where are you from? What do you do? What do you like? What do you like? In our case, we're locals. So it's like, well, what do you like about Key West? Where would you go if you had a place to go? Then that starts the conversation and it never ends. It's one of the reasons I love this place. I love beach towns because most beach towns, not just in the Keys, Carolinas, West Coast Florida, up in the Panhandle, wherever you go in this area, people are fairly friendly and they just love conversation. And I'm always joking with Janelle. It's like we'll be driving back to the room or taking the cab back to the room, depending on our night. And I'll say to her, I said, man, we met some interesting people again tonight. And that's the way it is in the Keys. Plus, you never know who you're going to run into. And that makes it quite a lot of fun. So after breakfast, we headed over to the Hemingway house, right around the corner from Blue Heaven. If you haven't heard about that, Ernest Hemingway lived in Key West for quite a long time, back in the 30s, 40s. His career, actually, of a lot of his top books were written while he lived in Key West. We're Florida history buffs, but we also love cats, and there's a collection of six-toed cats there that more or less own the place. I would have to say they do. They're pretty much, that's pretty much what it's all about now. And it's good for me inspirationally to visit there. I mean, Hemingway is a great writer. You can take the stairs at the back of the property up to his little private writing room, which is more or less like a tree house. It's just hidden up north, and it's fantastic. But you go up there, you go into Hemingway's little private writing room. His typewriter is there. They've got his books. They've got it arranged like he used it. It's one of the things that I have to do to go there again. It gives me inspiration as a writer to see that. If you hear a roar in the background, which you probably shouldn't, this mic's pretty good, but it's pouring down raining. Like I said, I don't know if it's ever going to stop here. And then after visiting the Hemingway house, it was time to go home, which is for me used to be a horrible bummer. I think back to the days when I visited down there quite a bit, and home meant either going all the way up into Florida, which would be Fort Myers, or worse, all the way back to Kentucky, or all the way back to wherever I happened to be, Ohio at the time, whatever I was doing job-wise. I'd get finished with Key West and have to get on a plane, get in a bus, whatever, and just go home. And what's so remarkable now about this is we were like, oh, we got to go home, but that's okay. 2 hours up US 1, not even off island. We live in Key Largo. So now going home doesn't feel anywhere near as bad as it used to. However, I do feel sorry for some of the people we met that have to go back up to the great cold snowy north, where a football game on Sunday had to be moved. I'm sure many of you probably already heard this. The Buffalo Bills Highmark Stadium was so full of snow from a snowstorm up in Buffalo, New York, that they had to move the game to Detroit, Michigan, to play under cover. And I saw pictures of the Buffalo Stadium, and it was I just can't even imagine. I think somebody said there was 66 inches of snow just in and around the stadium. How in the world does that happen? Anyway, I'm really, really glad that we are where we are. And all I can say is, gosh, I love Florida. Thank you so much for listening. I appreciate you taking the time to tune into my podcast. If you enjoyed it, please tell a friend, leave a review. My podcasts are scheduled for each and every Tuesday. Catch Outdoors is presented by the Waypoint Podcast Network. It's available on Waypoint and by many of your favorite podcast providers. Facebook page is Catch Outdoors. Website, waypointtv.com and catchoutdoors.com. Until next time, get outdoors and enjoy.